This is the Citroen 2CV, and it has one of the most incredible, one of the coolest transmissions in the automotive world. And in this video, we're going to learn how it works, show you all about it, and talk about why it's so important and why it's never been replicated. The first really smart engineering innovation about the 2CV shifter is actually its location. Now, at initial glance, things seem pretty familiar. Take a look at, for example, the pedals. We still have the throttle on the right, the brake in the middle, and the clutch on the left. That's very traditional, but the shifter placement is very odd. It's not a floor-mounted shifter. It's not a console-mounted shifter. So if you look down here, a completely flat floor, and that is very handy for carrying stuff. If you had produce from the market, you could fill up the floor here. You don't have a rod protruding out of the middle to get in the way. There's no protrusions, right? It's really open down here, really airy. You could also put a handbag down there. That's really smart. Now, this could be accomplished in a number of ways. One of those ways would be by putting the shifter on the column. But the issue with the column-mounted shifter, you got a lot of linkages to get down to the transmission. And then a lot of people didn't like the column-mounted shifters. A lot of folks thought they were fairly cumbersome and not very quick to use. Now, the shifter in the 2CV is this bizarre blob that's right in the middle of the dash, mounted up high, sticking out completely out of the way. And let's take a look at how it works. Now, I will give you that this is one weird looking shifter. If we take a look at the design, we've got a horizontal rod that protrudes out of the center of the dashboard before curving up at the end where it meets this perfect plastic sphere, this round ball, and this is the shift knob. Now, that really is the strangest part about the shifter because the operation makes a lot of sense and is really ingenious. So just like a traditional floor-mounted shifter, there's a neutral, and the neutral is in between the front and the backward gears. But instead of moving the shifter left and right to, I don't know, test out your neutral, as is so common, you twist the ball to the left and the right. So the actual mechanism twists. You can see it goes left and right, and then it springs back into a middle position. Very similar to how a conventional floor-mounted shifter would do. Now let's start out with what I call the slow gears. So the reverse, the first gear, if you will. These are like the parking gears. You're just getting going on a hill, you need first gear. You're backing out of a spot, you need reverse. Now, reverse and first gear are directly in a line with each other. So to access first gear, you push in on the clutch, you twist the knob to the left, and you pull back. And you can see that the shaft extends another 3 or 4 inches. Now, this is a really weird design as it protrudes out facing me, but this is the first gear gate, if you will. And then, of course, push it back into the middle for neutral. Now, to access reverse, well, reversed is right in front of first. So you twist to the left again, but this time you push forward. Now, let's say you're in a maneuver situation, right? You're in a parking lot, you're doing a 3-pointed turn. Well, this is where the genius of the 2CV shifter comes in because first and reverse are directly in line with each other. So twist the knob to your left, that's reverse, that's first. There's no left and right twist that needs to happen. You just pull it in and out while holding to the left. Very smart. So you're going, you got to back up, reverse, ready to go forward, pull it straight out. And you can see that between the neutral gate, you probably have 3 inches of movement, maybe 6 inches in total. And it makes such a satisfying little click as you engage each gear. Okay, so that's reverse and first. So now we're back into neutral. Second gear and third gear, once again, directly in a line, and this is very smart. The idea is you're cruising along your French hills, your countryside, you're going to need to downshift into second, you're going to need upshift into third. So, second gear, push forward from neutral, third gear, pull back from neutral, directly in a line. Second, third, and then fourth, which was kind of considered an overdrive, is actually to the right and forward. Such an easy thing to get used to, very satisfying to use, extremely quick, extremely fun actually. It kind of just bounces to and fro. Now, to understand the significance behind the 2CV transmission, we first have to understand the significance behind this amazing little French car. You see, the 2CV was designed to mobilize rural France. This was designed to be a very affordable vehicle to get people off of the horse, much as the Model T had the same design initiative back in the early 1900s. Now, the 2CV was originally called the TPV, and that pretty much describes its entire purpose on this earth. TPV stood for Tout Petit Voiture, which means very small car. And it was the brainchild of a gentleman named Pierre-Jules Boulanger, who in 1936 requested his team to design a car that was able to carry 50 kilograms worth of produce to the market. It had to be able to drive over an unplowed field without breaking a basket of eggs. It had to be very cheap to make, very cheap to assemble, and very easy to fix for the average French farmer. Well, prototypes rolled out in 1937 and it was ready to go by 1939. They had built over 200 of them. In fact, it was supposed to be revealed at the 1939 Paris Auto Show in October. However, in September of that year, France declared war on Germany. And, well, our friend Pierre-Jules Boulanger was not much fond of the Germans at the time. And he requested that all prototypes of the 2CV be destroyed or be hidden from the Nazis. Now, what does that mean? Not hidden away at the very back of the Citroen factory, but literally hidden. They buried some of them. They shoved some in attics of old cottages. In fact, they were discovering these hidden away in cottages as late as the 1990s. That's how hidden these cars were. Now, during the war, just a little aside, Pierre-Jules did pretty much everything in his power to make life for the Germans difficult. So at the time, Citroen was making military trucks, and he requested his employees, secretly of course, that they build them very, very slowly. He is said to have also done stuff like put the fill mark for the dipstick at the wrong level, too far down, so that the Germans, when driving the trucks, would grenade the engines because they didn't have enough oil in them. He did stuff like redirect trains that had manufacturing goods. He was really much loved by the French resistance and really much disliked by the German Gestapo, who eventually declared him enemy of the state. But anyways, when the war ended, he was finally able to put his vision into production, and the first 2CVs debuted in the late 1940s. Now, the transmission in these cars is significant because when you look at the cars designed in the 30s and the 1940s, the vast majority of them, regardless of their country of origin, had a 3-speed manual transmission. But the person in charge of the engine transmission for this car declared that it needed a 4-speed transmission. And this was not completely unheard of. Vehicles like the little Fiat Topolino, they had a 4-speed, but for the most part, the competitors in France, the little Peugeot 202, the Renaults, they all used a 3-speed. So 4-speed was pretty smart, but the implementation of the 4-speed is really what makes the shift pattern so incredible and so unique. Now, this is the kind of thing that gets me so incredibly excited because, of course, I'm a little bit of an old French car nerd, but I'm a huge fan of simple, basic engineering that is simple to understand. Now, what we have here is the entire shift mechanism for the 2CV. It consists of just these two rods. Now, this first rod, this silver rod, is the same rod we were manipulating on the inside of the vehicle. So this is the rod with that little ball at the end of it. That is connected via a very simple joint to a second rod that goes straight down into the transmission. And in fact, if you look down there, you can see what appears to be like a shift boot. But all we're doing with that crazy shift pattern is a simple, basic H pattern. Except unlike most front-wheel drive cars where you'd have to have a series of linkages, all you have is this one basic system. So here's how it works. When we twisted that knob left and right in neutral, all we were doing was essentially the middle gate, or the middle stroke of neutral on this H pattern. So here we have neutral, just like you would find on a typical manual transmission. Now, first gear was twist the knob to the left and pull back. Well, we can see what happens there. Twist the knob to the left and pull back. First gear. Reverse was just in front of that, so push the knob to the left and push forward. That's reverse. Now when we look at second, we pass through neutral once again and push forward. Second gear. Pass through neutral once again, pull back. Third gear, and then fourth gear is of course over here in its own little area. But that's it. That is how simple this basic design is. It's just an H pattern. So this is a phenomenal system. I love the engagement. It's super smooth. Yes, it's got a nice little click as you access a gear successfully, and it almost feels weighted. It just springs into the next gear. Really fun, really, really engaging. And it's actually a dog leg. So first gear is dog leg to the left. Second and third are in a line. You find that in some high performance cars that are built for the racetrack where you need second and third frequently. Well, this has it, but for your French countryside, because those are your climbing gears, right? Second and third, what you need to get up a mountain, and then you level out in a third, the back of a mountain in a second. Just a phenomenal feeling transmission, completely out of the way, right? You're not gonna have any interference with luggage or handbags on the floor. Great to use. What an amazing piece of dirt simple engineering that allows the 2CV to accomplish not only a pass-through in the center, but a shifter that's fun, engaging, easy to use, and extremely reliable. Now, my favorite example of the implementation of the transmission and the 2CV itself is actually a story that dates back quite a number of years. There was a gentleman who was driving a 2CV through Africa, and he was in the dunes and the car kept getting bogged down, and eventually he got stuck. He was stranded in his 2CV. Now, rather than chancing to walk out, he was in the middle of nowhere. He decided to turn his 2CV into a motorcycle. So he removed the entire body, but because the engine and the transmission are so small and compact in one simple unit, he got rid of that shifter on the inside and simply shifted it like a typical car. So that's how he shifted it. He had it at the front. He had two wheels, one in the front, one in the back, the gas tank strapped to it as well, and he was able to escape the desert on a two-wheeled motorcycle version of a 2CV that he built himself in the middle of nowhere. What a cool piece of history that is. But I love this simple design. Great piece of engineering from Citroen, something we don't see anymore today. In terms of its simplicity, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, this has been Tommy with the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in classic reviews.